Photographic Composition, Lecture 10, Architecture in the Urban Landscape, Part 3. Joel Meyerowitz began as a street photographer in the mold of Gary Winogrand, shooting at first exclusively in black and white, and then supplementing that with color, both in his native New York and in Europe. He would soon be photographing only in color with his 35mm Leicas, and then on Cape Cod during summers with an 8x10 view camera. These weren't simply black and white images in color, but images that would have little reason for being if it weren't for the chromatic information they contained. Following the events of September 11, 2001 in New York, Meyerowitz, who had been able to see the World Trade Center from his studio, decided to document the aftermath and cleanup efforts for months to come. Through sheer persistence involving almost daily acts of resourcefulness and defiance, Meyerowitz became the sole photographer to have continued access to the site and describe its transformation over the next 9 months from a place of total devastation to cleared bedrock. The photographs serve not only as an elegy to the thousands who lost their lives, but also celebrate the tireless effort and bravery of the thousands of police officers, firefighters, construction workers, engineers, and volunteers who assisted in the cleanup process. In the late 1970s, Japanese-born New York-based photographer Hiroshi Sugimoto was struck by an idea that seemed to hit him like a lightning bolt. He would go to a movie theater with his 8x10 camera and set up directly facing the screen. With the lens stopped all the way down, he opened the shutter as the film began and would not close it until the film was over. The cumulative light projected at the screen, he understood, would go completely white and provide the theater's only illumination. The process and results were compelling enough for his conceptualist sensibilities that he would return to it for decades to come. In his foreword to the series Architecture, John Yao writes, "Architecture marks a formal breakthrough for Sugimoto. He has jettisoned hyperrealism in favor of a distinctly blurred image, which shifts his subjects into dreamlike stillness and transforms them into an interplay of light and shadow. We see essential forms rather than details. We feel as if we are squinting or standing underwater. Is the building being imagined in the mind's eye, being remembered, or is it flickering at the edge of our perception? By defamiliarizing well-known buildings, Sugimoto compels us to look at them with renewed attentiveness." Martin Parr wears many photographic hats. He is a member of Magnum Photos, the agency begun after the Second World War by Cartier-Bresson, Robert Capa, and other legendary photojournalists. He has shown straight photography, highly manipulated multimedia works, curated exhibitions, created a wide range of books, including a massive set of books on the photography book. His photojournalism and personal work often collide to form wry observations of humans everywhere, and in particular the inhabitants of his native England. He is often focused on people on holiday, a preoccupation he shares with his countryman, Tony Ray Jones, who died prematurely in 1972. The British have always attacked their holidays with a grim determination to have a good time. Done in such numbers of people that huge enclosed swimming pools decorated to look like the sun is out regardless of the actual weather outside sprung up in the 1970s, much to Parr's horror and glee. Compositionally, this is a rather amorphous image. There's so much going on, it's difficult to know where to look first. But the objective is to overwhelm with sheer numbers. The only unifying elements are the two cliffs bordering the horizon. Individual bathers were fair game. Len Gentile was part of the wave of photographers to follow Eggleston and Shore into working exclusively in color. Although very much attuned to the urban landscape, his early work was always focused more on the colors of the world around him than any societal content. This image is poignant for having been made atop the World Trade Center, but at the time, the stillness of the scene and its calming colors took center stage. Gentile has also collected visual non sequiturs during his travels. As with the World Trade Center image, the colors are muted. Joel Sternfeld began documenting the American landscape in the 1970s with his 8x10 camera. As time passed, he became increasingly interested in what he might be able to do to accomplish by revealing aspects of the social landscape. Oops. In the book On This Site, he recorded the scenes of famous murders and man-made disasters, in this case featuring a house condemned as uninhabitable, located near Upper New York State's heavily polluted Love Canal. His photography was instrumental in publicizing Manhattan's High Line, which would become a landmark example of urban rehabilitation and repurposing. He has also continually returned to documenting the decay of the country's once flourishing industrial corridors. Canadian photographer Edward Burtynsky has always set his sights on inhumane treatment of people and other living things as well as the planet. Here, pink-clad workers in a Chinese factory prepare chickens for the market. What appears at first to be the flow of lava from a volcano is in fact pollution from a nearby metal processing plant. The beautiful and the horrifying can coexist in a single image. Another colorist, Michael Eastman, has been drawn to architecture in decline in various parts of the world for decades. In this case, the United States, specifically Las Vegas, and in Havana, Cuba. The extreme passage of time is conveyed by the work of German photographer Michael Wesley. He positions cameras, opens their shutters, and leaves them in place for as long as a year, in this instance, in Berlin, and nearly 3 years in the case of this view of the Museum of Modern Art. Gregory Crewdson spends months producing each of his finished images, very much as if they were big-budget films. Crews of dozens, diverse equipment, and large amounts of money are all utilized in each of his shoots. The end products often depict domestic events with psychological narratives. Italian Olivo Barbieri is primarily an aerial photographer who has developed a technique using tilt-shift lenses that render urban landscapes with selective focus. In this case, the Flatiron Building looks as if it's part of a scale model of New York, one of the byproducts of using extremely shallow depth of field. Michael Wolff's images of high-rise buildings reveal the variety of congested environments many of us call home. This is also the occasional turf of Andreas Gursky, as seen here in an image made in Sao Paulo, one of the world's most densely populated cities. Even the architect's use of various forms to break up this structure can't mask its massiveness. Gursky's former Dusseldorf classmate, Thomas Struth, has focused his attention on ancient architecture as it exists in the modern world. Here, the facade of the Duomo di Milano, made in 1998, fills the frame with pedestrians streaming past. This image of a building under construction by Jorn van Hofen, another German photographer of the Dusseldorf school, looks like its upper floors are on fire, but this is simply the effect of artificial light seen in the midst of the much cooler daylight at dusk. American Jeff Browse has documented what some homeowners have done to make their simple tract homes appear different from their neighbors. A prolific photographer, Browse remains ever ready to shoot whatever he might stumble across. Short of torching this car in the desert himself, there is no way he would have known it would have burst into flame in advance, and that he would have been in the neighborhood. Like many of his contemporaries, Andrew Moore moves constantly between wide-ranging geographical locations and cities in decline, and those that maintain a certain vitality, seemingly regardless of the general economy. The once mighty manufacturing city of Detroit is incapable of hiding what has befallen it of late. while New York continues to grow and bustle, at times heedless of the bounds of public decorum. Times Square, as seen here, it seems destined to forever be one big, never-ending, blinking billboard in the middle of Manhattan. Todd Hito mines whatever environment he finds himself in for subject matter that evokes strong emotions. His series, Homes at Night, brought him to suburban and semi-rural neighborhoods in search of houses that expressed a deep sense of isolation and loneliness, both his own and that of the house's residents. For landscapes, he returned to his native Ohio to shoot rural communities under a variety of inclement conditions from his car, the tinted windshield of which can be seen here. John Davola spent a good part of the 1990s traveling to the outskirts of his native Los Angeles County in search of houses on the edge. He has said about his work, "Los Angeles is a centrifugal city, fundamentally American in its tendency toward the periphery. Isolated Houses focuses on the urban sprawl's outer frontier. Here, 150 miles outside the city, the built environment comprises a handful of rudimentary structures, isolated cubes at the edge of the infinite plain of the desert. The dwellings that dot the landscape seem temporary and toy-like, but are the center of these photographs, the reason for their being. This work pays homage to those places where nature and culture intersect and suggests that we all occupy a border zone between the natural and the artificial."